was gonna say, how do you feel you have to change your language or adjust when you're working with these people that might not necessarily have a lot of musical background? Like, for example, I was working with a creative director who said they wanted jazz, but as I progressed in the conversation, realized they didn't want jazz at all.
Yeah, well, that's our challenge, right? To have people in front of us that are hiring us to do something for them, and they don't know music well enough to articulate exactly what they're after. This is and this is where a good film composer becomes a great film composer when you're able to read what they're after, and then you end up giving them what they need and not what they asked for. So they may say jazz, but then you have to think, well, what do they mean by that? And then you can kind of narrow it down and ask them, give me an example, like which movie are you referencing? And then they say Taxi Driver. You go, okay, so something film noir. I see, they want something noir. Jazz is such a broad term. It could be Ella Fitzgerald, it could be Louis Armstrong, it could be Miles Davis, it could be Duke Ellington. I don't know, any of these could be considered jazz, but it's extremely different than the score to Taxi Driver. So I think it's important to have, first of all, a really good communication. And then I always try to work as much with references as possible. I ask them what movie they would reference. What's the tone of this film? What film would you compare it to? What's your favorite artist? You can ask random questions that are completely unrelated. And, often you find, for example, that somebody says they want a heavy metal score. And you watch the movie and you realize this is not at all what this movie needs. And then you ask the director, what's your favorite music? And he says, I like heavy metal. And then you go, okay, got it. So he loves this music genre. He made this film and he's trying to find a way to combine his passion with his project. And then you have to find a place for all those things to align and to make it work. I always love, some composers hate temp music, the music they cut in a film before you to hire a composer for test screening purposes and also editorial purposes. Mm-hmm. I find it extremely helpful because what it does is it gets everybody at the same table and with the same pie in front of them that we can look at and dissect. When you have nothing, a naked film, and you're just dealing with verbal input, like we want this here, we want this here, we want this here, and then the studio wants this, and the director wants this, the editor had that idea, you end up in kind of no man's land, and all you're doing is shooting in the dark, trying to figure out what everybody wants. And often that can become so frustrating that composers get fired because, how are you supposed to know what all this means? Like we've just been over, jazz doesn't necessarily mean jazz, but the guy said jazz, so you do jazz, and they say we hate it, and you say, but this is what you asked for. So it's a very, very dangerous pitfall to be in. So in projects like this, when there's really no consensus on what the movie needs, I don't write anything until I have at least tempted a few key scenes with something, and we all agree that this is what we need to do. And often that gets you out of this downward spiral into no man's land, and and just to a place where you can start with something cohesive and you understand, okay, everybody likes this vibe that I just put in from this score, from X score or Y score, and then you kind of know this is what we need to do, and everybody feels much more confident at that point too. So anyway, that's temp can be a curse because of temp love, when they love temp too much that you have a hard time finding an original replacement for it, so you're trying to not knock off what they put in before. But at the same time, especially on studio films, when there's so many people giving you input, you really need it to just start on the right track. Otherwise, it can very quickly derail into something bad.
Oh, wow. That's really cool to hear about your process with doing that. I haven't heard a lot of talks with film score composers talking about really getting those ideas solidified before starting the whole process.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you have worked on various things from TV to movies. How have those different schedules affected how you work for each medium?
Well, TV is very rapid. So if you're a TV composer, you need to be prepared to just bang out the cues, get it done, deliver it, and make sure that nothing ever falls behind, because they are on a steady schedule. And in animation, for example, they mix every 2 weeks. And they have to be on the mix stage because sound will be ready, picture will be ready, and the show is airing the following week or the week after. So you better be fully prepared, have everything mixed and delivered and approved. So TV is intense. That's, I think, the right word to say. It's a lot of fun, and it's really, one of my favorite things to do, I think. But it is difficult in terms of endurance, because you really need to keep it up. And when you have to write your 100th action cue that sounds like the show but is slightly different, you get to sometimes a mental point where you're like, I'm so tired of this music. I can't do this anymore. But you have to overcome that really fast and just go and get it done and make it sound even better than episode 1. So, and I think that's the challenge, is to constantly deliver and constantly kind of up the game. What would be bad is if you have a great episode 1, great episode 2, okay episode 3, and by episode 4 you get so bored of this music or tired of this music that it kind of falls apart. The filmmakers will notice, and things will not turn out well for you. So I think TV is what's crucial here is the endurance to keep up the quality and the level of the work you've provided so far, all the way through the seasons until the very end of the show. And the key component in that, I think, is the craft. Not necessarily your intellect and your knowledge of harmony, your knowledge of, your training, or your knowledge of scores or knowledge of classical music. It's the craft of sitting at the keyboard and getting the cue, input it into your computer, getting it mixed so it sounds right, making sure it's cohesive, it hits the story points, and being able to do that, quite literally with a gun to your head in a certain amount of time. I think once you nail down that skill, you're basically ready to go in the TV world. In feature films, it's very different, because you get the film and you have a time frame of, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks. It's pretty normal to write like 80 to 90 minutes of music, start to finish, with recording and approval process. And often you have enough time in the beginning to sit down for a week, sketch out themes, come up with the core material that you're going to use, and make sure that gets approved. Or if it's more of an atmospheric thing, you can come up with the sounds and create the synths that you like, make something custom so it's a unique, experience for the audience. And then you just kind of go, you work your way through the film, start to finish, or you jump around depending on your preference. And yeah, by the time you get to 6 to 8 weeks, you're done. They go to the mix, and it's over. They will never call you until they have the next film. Mm-hmm. So all the intensity suddenly just drops and you're finished. In TV, it often goes on for years, just constantly for years. And which makes it, often also hard to take vacations. I'm going to say that because a show like All Hail King Julian that I scored many years ago, we did 76 episodes, and I don't remember there ever being a hiatus. It was 2 weeks for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And it was the best time of my life. It was an amazing amount of fun. But, you have a family and you're trying to, do a summer trip, and that becomes a little bit challenging when you're dealing with something like this. So you have to be prepared to make some sacrifices on that part.
As far as the Dragon Prince, when you're composing for that, is there any particular character or particular environment that you really look forward to writing the music for when you get ready to write for it?
I think, just without looking ahead, since we don't know, but going back to the 3 seasons we did finish, mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite parts of the story to score was the Rayla Callum love story. Oh yeah. And also Rayla's backstory. I think those things were thematically the most interesting to me. And very early on, before we even started to score the pilot, I started to I just composed a whole bunch of themes first for every character. And this was all based on storyboards, key art, and the animation Bible that they had created. There was no footage yet. It was just verbal description. And and that's how I basically created the core material, the thematic material. And I had this Rayla theme, which was a kind of a waltz, if you want. Like it's either in 6/8 or 3/4, depending on how you look at it. And I was a little bit, I loved the theme, but I was slightly on the fence, thinking, is this going to work? Does this sound too dancey, too bouncy? Is this not gonna fit with the scenes? So then I kind of just trusted my gut because I liked the theme and I ran with it. And it turns out it was perfect because Rayla is kind of this sort of upbeat character, which that sort of slightly dance feel in the music worked out really well in the end. But there was a little bit of a gamble on my part. But once the story kind of unfolded in season 2 and season 3, I think for me that was the most fun to incorporate her little things into the love story between Callum and Rayla, and you know, the big payoff in season 3 for sure.
Oh, I honestly love that theme. I have some of the songs from their love story on my own personal playlist, as well as working on the Dragon Prince. And this is actually how you and I ended up meeting at Comic-Con. You've done a lot of work for the DC animation universe, right?
Yep, that's right.
I've got to ask, if you were any one of those superheroes, which one would you be? If you got to pick.
Okay, so let's make that question specific about the universe I've worked in, which is the New 52.
Yes.
That whole string of movies. I think I always thought Nightwing was the coolest guy. He didn't have a whole lot of screen time, but his wit was to me the funniest one of all of them. So I would say either him or Green Lantern. I think Nathan Fillion did such a fun Green Lantern for all of these that he was, again, one with not as much screen time as the others, but I think I identify the most with those in terms of the sense of humor.
Yes, I am so excited every time they bring Nightwing on the screen because
yeah,
he's just a hilarious character. He's always fun.
Yeah. I think that was it in Hush? I think in Batman Hush. Did you see that one?
Yes, I was at the premiere for that one.
Yes, so when when Batman has his little love thing and they're all making kind of fun of him, there were some really fun, awkward moments with Nightwing and Batman. I thought that was really funny. Yeah.
So has a lot changed on your end, even beyond Comic-Con, of course, with working during the pandemic? You mentioned that a lot of the stuff you had went into post, but has anything in how you have to work with it changed?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm a big fan of personal meetings and having people in my studio and kind of interact with everybody and bounce off ideas with each other and try things on the spot. And, this is a process that I really enjoy, especially with directors, because often they have amazing ideas and unique ideas that need exploring and need try and error. So for that kind of thing, it's usually great to just have people on my couch and we just jam for a couple hours and come up with something. And, I isolate things they like or don't like. So now everything's via Zoom meetings and sending MP3s and movie clips to people, and they look at it at their own time, and then they call to talk about it. So there's, it works. You can get it done this way, and of course the result will be great in the end, no matter what. But I miss the personal, like the filmmaking experience where you're in a room with people, you're a creative hive mind, and you just kind of spitball ideas and cool things emerge, and not to mention orchestral recordings, which are not happening right now. So luckily, none of my projects that I'm working on right now will need that. But I just if there was something that needs like a big string section, I think I'd be really bummed out right now not being able to record it. So that's the part that is going to hopefully come back soon, because it's crucial to what I do, is being able to hire orchestras to do the music scoring.
You streamlined yourself right into the next question I had prepared, which was, how often do you work with live musicians as opposed to just digital patches?
Yeah, I would say every project has a live musician on it, even if it's just one. But yeah, I mean, Dragon Prince alone, I always recorded 3 or 4 people for each episode. That was a standard procedure. And the show I'm working on right now, also the same thing, and the movies too. So even if I can't have an orchestra, I have a bunch of people around me that work at home. They have a studio set up where they can record themselves remotely. And yeah, I just send them Pro Tools sessions and they do it. They have charts and they call me if they have questions. Sometimes I zoom in to be part of the session to hear it. And so that's basically the process. So right now there's a lot of remote recording, sending files to people, getting files back, mixing it here. And, it works. It's better than no live recording. But again, there's nothing better than having a director on the couch, a musician in your studio, and the 3 of you work together to get it exactly right. And, you get the director's input. So those things just have to be a little bit different right now. But we're all making the best of it, and everybody understands the limitations. But yeah, by all means, I'm going to keep recording as much as I can.
Personally think collaboration is the best part about being a creative.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's I think for music especially, it's crucial. So that's the challenging part for us right now. To keep that going virtually somehow.
So, if you got to see any of your scores performed live with an orchestra, like Video Games Live does, or there's like lots of Harry Potter live with orchestra concerts, what score would you want to see that with?
I think the Dragon Prince would be perfect.
Did you have a specific episode in mind?
Yeah, maybe the season finale of season 3. It's I think as epic as it gets and as large in scale. We would need a very large choir and at least an 80-piece orchestra to make it work. But yeah, that'd be pretty badass.
That would be awesome. Would you conduct it, or do you have someone else?
You know, my wife is a fantastic conductor. She's conducted all my scores.
Oh
So
wow, I didn't know
I'd
that.
probably hire her to do it. Yeah.
That is awesome. I think that is all of the questions I had prepared for you. Did you have any final thoughts or stories you wanted to share with the community?
um, Not really. Maybe watch Dragon Prince again. Keep the ratings going.
We definitely have the time now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Binging is Binging should be on everybody's list right now.
It's it, it's a professional sport now.
Yeah, exactly. Same here.
Well, Freddie, thank you so much for joining me and fitting this into your schedule. I had so much fun chatting with you. Hopefully, I'll get to see you at a con again sometime soon when this is all over.
Hopefully, yeah. And if not this one, then maybe the next one.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
Thank you, Sapphire. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye bye.